Most people wait all year for their birthday. They throw parties. They crave attention. They want to feel seen. But some people don't. They wake up like it's any other morning. No cake. No calls. No celebration. Just silence. And here's the strange part. Psychology says those people might be the most self-aware ones of all. But why? Let's dive deep. On the surface, it seems cold. Why wouldn't you celebrate yourself? Are you depressed? Lonely? That's what most people assume. But the truth is much more complex. Because the way someone treats their birthday reveals something hidden. Their relationship with attention, validation, and even time itself. And in many cases, it's not sadness, it's clarity. Let's start with this. People who treat birthdays like just another day often think deeply. They're not cold or antisocial. They're introspective. They've learned to find meaning in silence, not noise. They've simply detached their sense of worth from the validation of others. For them, peace doesn't come from attention. It comes from understanding who they are when no one's watching. Most people celebrate their birthdays because they crave a reminder that they matter. They want to feel seen, loved, and important. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's human nature to want connection. But for some, that craving has faded. These people have already found what others spend their whole lives chasing: internal validation. They don't need the world to clap for them to know they exist. They've reached a rare kind of emotional independence, the kind that says, I am enough, even if no one notices. That's not sadness. That's power. It's the quiet confidence of someone who no longer needs to perform for approval. But here's the twist. This same strength can sometimes be rooted in pain. Many who act indifferent to birthdays didn't start out that way. They became that way. Somewhere along the line, they learned that expectations lead to disappointment. Maybe people forgot. Maybe they were overlooked one too many times. So they built walls. They told themselves they didn't care. And after a while, that story became real. What started as protection turned into personality. The indifference wasn't always peace. Sometimes it was self-defense. So when someone says, it's just another day, it might mean two things. They found true contentment within themselves, or they're still healing from the times when no one showed up. Many who downplay birthdays learned early that expectations lead to disappointment. They discovered, often at a young age, that excitement can be dangerous, because when you expect something special and it doesn't happen, the silence hurts louder than any noise. Maybe they grew up with forgotten birthdays. Maybe no one showed up to the party they hoped for. Maybe the people they loved were too distracted, too distant, or too broken themselves to notice. And so they quietly rewired their minds to believe one thing. If I don't expect anything, I can't get hurt. So they stopped expecting, stopped hoping, stopped celebrating. They told themselves it didn't matter, that birthdays were meaningless, that it was just another day. But underneath that calm detachment lived something fragile, a heart that had learned to protect itself from disappointment by shutting the door. Before anyone could knock, what looked like emotional maturity was actually a clever disguise, self-protection, masquerading as indifference. They wore their calm like armor, convincing others, and eventually themselves, that they were above it all. But here's the haunting part. That coping mechanism works too well. It numbs the pain, but it also numbs the joy. It stops rejection, but it also blocks connection. When you stop expecting, you stop allowing. You stop opening yourself to moments that could surprise you, soften you, or heal you. Soon, the walls meant to keep out disappointment become barriers against love itself. You build safety, but at the cost of warmth. You build solitude, but lose celebration. And before you realize it, those quiet birthdays stop being an act of peace. and start becoming proof of how far you've drifted from letting yourself feel. But not everyone who skips birthdays is broken. Some people are simply built differently. They've stopped measuring life by moments of celebration and started measuring it by moments of clarity. They've embraced something far deeper. A stoic mindset got to them. Time isn't a countdown of years or candles. It's a mirror. Every birthday isn't a party. It's a checkpoint. A pause to look inward and ask the real questions. Have I grown? Have I learned? Am I living the way I should? They don't crave noise, ifs, or attention. They crave understanding of themselves, their purpose, and their path. When the world celebrates with confetti and cake, they celebrate in silence. Because their joy doesn't come from people remembering them. It comes from remembering themselves. They don't ask, who thought of me today? They ask, what have I become since last year? To them, birthdays are not about being seen. They're about seeing clearly. They understand a truth that most people spend their lives avoiding. Meaning doesn't come from attention. It comes from alignment. Alignment. With your values, your growth, your peace. When you reach that level of understanding, when your sense of self no longer depends on external noise, the need for celebration simply fades away. Not that they reject happiness, they just define it differently. Their fulfillment doesn't need an audience. Their silence isn't emptiness, it's balanced out. So while others search for candles and applause, they sit quietly, content in the stillness of their own awareness. Because sometimes, the most profound celebration is the one that happens within, unseen, unheard, but deeply understood. Here's what most people miss. Sometimes, treating your birthday as just another day isn't indifference. It's evolution. It's not about being cold or detached. It's about reaching a place where you no longer need the world's applause to feel alive. It's emotional mastery, the kind that comes when you realize happiness, built on validation, will always crumble. There's a rare kind of freedom in that when you no longer chase attention. You stop being controlled by it. You stop measuring your worth in likes, gifts, or who remembered you. You find peace in being unseen. But silence has a paradox. The same stillness that protects you from pain can also start to numb you. The same independence that once felt like power can quietly become isolation. Because when you spend too long hiding behind your peace, you forget what warmth feels like. You stop letting people in. You stop letting yourself feel at first. It's comforting. No expectations, no disappointments. But slowly, that safety turns hollow. The walls that once kept you safe start to echo back your own loneliness. And that's the hidden cost of emotional control. It can make you forget how to receive so you convince yourself you're fine without connection, without celebration, without anyone until one day your birthday arrives again, quietly, like any other morning. And for a split second, something inside you aches, because deep down, you remember what it felt like to be seen, to be celebrated, to matter. And that's when the truth hits. Your birthday didn't stop being special. You just stopped letting yourself believe it could be. So what does this all mean? If you're one of those people who shrug off your birthday, stop for a moment and ask yourself why. Is it truly peace? Or is it protection? Is it wisdom? The calm that comes from self-awareness? Or fear disguised as wisdom, quietly telling you not to hope again? Sometimes we tell ourselves we don't care because caring once hurt too much. We convince ourselves that indifference is strength, that solitude is peace. But deep down, it's often exhaustion, the kind that comes from expecting love and being met with silence. We call ourselves independent because it sounds noble, but sometimes independence is just the armor we wear when connection starts to feel unsafe. We learn to celebrate nothing because celebrating alone feels unbearable. But here's the truth. Letting yourself be celebrated doesn't make you weak. It doesn't make you needy. It makes you human, because life isn't meant to be lived in isolation. We are wired for recognition, for warmth, for acknowledgement, not from ego, but from existence itself. When you let others celebrate you, you're not asking for validation. You're opening the door for love to reach you again. You're reminding yourself that joy doesn't always have to be earned. And maybe the most powerful thing you can do isn't pretending not to care. It's allowing yourself to feel again. That not because you need attention, not because you crave importance, but because you deserve a moment of light in a world that so often feels dark. So when your next birthday comes, don't hide from it. Even if it's small, even if it's quiet, let yourself be seen. Because sometimes being celebrated is how healing begins. So the next time your birthday comes around, maybe light that candle, not for others to see you, but for you to see yourself. Because no matter how quietly you live, your existence still matters. And that's worth celebrating, even if no one's watching.